Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. Today, I am so excited to welcome Kuiky and Andrew from the San Francisco Suicide Hotline. They are also graduates of CIIS. And so, in this transformation series, we are inviting graduates, alumni to come back in and tell us how they're using their education in service of beloved community in the ways that are so needed in healing. Yeah, the work you all do is really hard and sacred. And so I'm going to ask you two questions. What brings you joy? And when you go home at night, how do you know it's been a good day? And then what are some of the challenges of working on the front line of preventing suicide?
We laugh a lot. A lot. It's 98% pretty much high spirited, and there's a lot of mutual support. A strenuous day for me is it differs. It has a lot to do with how I'm feeling and what I'm going through. Some strenuous days end up being very lovely days because of the impact, the positive impact that we've made on the community. So, maybe physically for me, yes, I'm a little tired, worn out. But in the long run, because we've made that positive impact to one person or to a family, uh, it doesn't feel as strenuous.
Absolutely. You are literally sometimes at the threshold of life and death. And so, Andrew, what about you? What's your day like? What keeps you going? What brings you joy?
I get to be in the world that I want to create. And what I
Mhm.
mean by that is the people that are doing this work that are volunteers, they're natural healers, they're natural caretakers. They want to they want to share compassion. And so when I'm in the room in the office, it's this fantasy magical land of like, oh my gosh, I'm listening to other people genuinely caring
Mhm.
for another human being that's a stranger that they don't know. And that's a really unique, special place. And
Yeah.
so that's what's really interesting about this versus individual practice, is that you're doing it together. You get off calls, you get off conversations, you share the conversations. And so it's this very special place where working with someone, watching them develop, watching them take a really good call and go, oh my gosh, that was beautiful. And I got a front row seat to it. Beautiful part. So those are the good days. The bad days are when someone doesn't reach out.
Yes, I really appreciate all that you both just said, and Andrew, especially that people are on their healing journey and that you are not there to save lives, but to walk folks down the hall. Because essentially, if someone calls, they're asking for support. That's a sign of health and a sign and a wanting to stay alive and keep the possibility open that their healing journey will continue. So I really appreciate that. And so why is it so difficult for people, or do you think it is difficult for people to talk about it?
A lot of it is stigma. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of guilt. And then when you break it down some more within different cultures, and different family cultures, I think it makes it challenging for people to talk about. And I also think people think they are very isolated in that experience. They even once someone has a family member or friend or knows someone who has died by suicide, even in that experience, there's an isolation, there's a sense of feeling of isolation, of being alone. I think there's also a fear. There's a fear that's connected with it that if you talk about it, then it starts a hysteria. So what happens is that when it happens, people don't talk about it, or organizations, they try to just make it seem like it's very isolated instead of addressing the situation and pulling back the covers and discussing it.
So I think that the reason why this is a hard conversation is because I think it does terrify people to hear that their loved one is going to do this, and it makes conversations very difficult. And the people that are already feeling very isolated and lonely and withdrawing, it makes them they withdraw even more,
Oh.
you know? And again, that's one of the wonderful things about what makes what we do manageable is that as long as we stay grounded and centered, the person's like, okay, great. I don't have to take care of you. I don't have to worry about upsetting you. I can just talk about me and you can handle it.
Hmm.
Share. And that loneliness breaks, it cracks just for a moment.
What additional training did you need to do this work? Like how do you all train volunteers? What are the additional skills? Because I think we probably have folks here who are more familiar with the therapy frame. What is the training?
The training is 8 weeks, 6 consecutive Saturdays, unless there's a holiday or something going on. And they are trained, shouldn't say they, we are trained in a variety of mandated reporting, how to assess suicide, and Andrew can talk more about that. And the
Mhm.
coordinators and the admin and the supervisors are actually initiating the training. And it's interactive, it's in person if it can be, and it's like 3.5 hours. Did I get that right, Andrew? 4 hours worth of training. Um, and then there's mentorship. Then you go through a mentorship. We have the most extensive training for our crisis counselors in the United States.
The way the trainings are structured are not to be lectures, but to be experiential. It's a
Mhm.
lot, and this is why. And
Right.
and we're bringing people back into the rooms because we want them to learn from each other by hearing each other in the rooms, in the conversations. You can listen in on each other's phone calls.
Yeah, can you share with us just how prevalent this is? How many calls do you all get in a day, in a week, in a year? What are some of those statistics?
We take in, I believe it's 61,000 calls this past year.
Uh-huh. Have you seen an increase in any demographic or a decrease in any demographic by age, by gender? Like, has there been any trend that is standing out in your mind about who's calling?
Can I actually just say something that I think is
Sure.
not necessarily who's calling. I think the focus needs to be on who's not calling, who are at high risk. We have LGBTQI youth,
Hmm.
very high risk at last year was 46% between the ages of 13 and 17. I have it written down here. Attempt is at 17%. From the ages of 18 to 24, it was 34%. And attempt is 9%. 41% non-binary and trans youth considered suicide, and the ones of color are higher. There's a particularly large increase for in people of indigenous people in the United States, specifically males, and it starts, I think, around from the ages of 10 upward.
Hmm.
Extremely high, and they have high completed suicide rates.
Hmm.
African American males, African American in general, but specifically African American males. Andrew has where there isn't a plan, there isn't a conversation, it just happens.
Yeah.
And and then there's also Asian and sub-Asian groups and South Pacific Islanders, also high. And I think a lot of it has to do with stigma. A lot of it has to do with languaging. You cannot assess all of these groups of people. You cannot assess all these people with this languaging that's there. The languaging is very boxed, it's very compartmentalized.
So what you're seeing here is this is a national statistic, and so you can see by state how the call volume has increased. You can see how it's a service that people are really needing. Another slide I thought that was really useful is this. You can see how the call volume has increased just in a few years. I'm gonna kind of just let you read all that. Okay. And then another one that I thought that was really interesting around people of color is this slide. So what that says is when people of color are even calling a line. First of all, that's rare, but when they do, they're less likely to share details, and they'll usually understate their suicidal ideation. And I read a different statistic somewhere else in a different presentation where they're least likely to ask for help. They will accept help, but they will not reach out for help. Yeah, so it's an interesting. It's important for us as a center to know that when we get these calls, to offer a follow-up call, and to, because we want to communicate that we do realize this is a big step to even reach out. Thank you for reaching out. How can we help you? Because otherwise, what the research paper was showing is that there's a mistrust, and they're not going to just they're not going to assume any help's going to come their way.
Yeah, it's just that's why we really push to try to get volunteers of color, so that when they do call, and having more volunteers of color will also help in the call room because they can hear each other. It teaches other people, all of us, how to talk to and how to reach out to all groups of people.
Mhm.
I think what we do is an important service. Uh, a lot of suicidality is happening during a moment of impulsivity. And we're that buffer. We're that call, that little call to give the person some space to rethink something, to change the situation, to um, let the feeling subside for just a moment. And so what I really love hearing is when a caller calls up and they say, "Hey, I've shared this with my therapist. We're working on it. We have a plan." They're in dialogue. Great. And what they've mentioned is, if I'm having any thoughts or any feelings, they gave me this number to call you, so I'm calling you.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I want. That's what I want to hear. So it's like, we're here. What's going on? Tell me how you're feeling. What's your day going? And then we just talk. And it's another support system. It's another way to kind of release the valve. And I love that combination, because that's what we're there for. It's that short-term emotional support. It takes the pressure off, and they have the long-term plan with the therapist to address the bigger issues, to address bigger life changes. And that's something that I would encourage people to do.
So we welcome all of you to
We
please
can all
call.
volunteer.
Please come and volunteer. We want you. We need you. We really need you. If you're willing to come and call or not, that's fine. Or tell people, or just call us up once in a while and say, hey, talk, whatever. Just talk us up. Tell people to call.
And so thank you for that. I think that's the work that we need to continue having that conversation at CIS and in our communities too, because it also helps externalize
Yeah.
the challenges that people feel internally, to realize that they are, subjected to a long system of oppression and colonization and generational trauma. That's a different talk, and we should have that one. I thank all of you. I want us to just give a lot of love and appreciation for Andrew and Kuiky for being here today, for sharing really from your heart. Thank you so much. And I hope some of the folks on the call decide to take it a step further and volunteer.